I woke at 2:30 the morning to the sound of muffled voices drifting up from the floor below. At 73 years old, my sleep had become lighter, more fragile. The smallest sound could pull me from dreams that were already starting to fade before I fully opened my eyes. I sat up slowly, listening. The house we'd lived in for 45 years knew how to creak and settle, and I knew every one of those sounds. This wasn't the furnace kicking on or the old pipes expanding. This was human conversation, low and urgent, coming from my study downstairs. My son, Ethan. He was supposed to be in Calgary for a medical conference. That's what he'd told me last week. But that was definitely his voice, along with another I couldn't quite place. I pulled on my housecoat and moved toward the stairs, each step careful and deliberate. My knees weren't what they used to be, and the last thing I needed was to take a tumble in the dark. The voices grew clearer as I descended. I stopped 3 steps from the bottom, just out of sight from the hallway that led to my study. The appraiser said anywhere between 800,000 and $1 million, Ethan was saying. That's just for the Winnipeg properties. The commercial building in Thunder Bay, that's another story entirely. And he doesn't know about any of it. The second voice belonged to my daughter-in-law, Rebecca. I felt my chest tighten. What were they doing here at this hour? Dad thinks Mom only had the house and her teacher's pension. He has no idea she'd been buying rental properties since the 80s. She kept it all in her maiden name, Thomas Holdings. He never even looked at the statements. I gripped the banister. My late wife, Margaret, dead now for 8 months. The grief was still fresh enough to catch me off guard at unexpected moments, but this was something else entirely. Your sister knows? Rebecca asked. Claire's known for years. Mom told her everything, made her the executor of the trust. Dad's name isn't anywhere on the documents. According to the legal structure Mom set up, he's just a tenant in his own house. A tenant. In my own house. The house where I'd raised 2 children. The house where Margaret and I had celebrated anniversaries, hosted Christmas dinners, nursed each other through illnesses. When do you tell him? Rebecca's voice was quieter now. We don't. Not yet. Claire thinks we should wait another 6 months, let him get more, let's say, dependent on us. He's already showing signs, forgetting appointments, leaving the stove on last month. We document everything, get a couple of doctors to evaluate him, and then we petition for guardianship. The word hung in the air like something toxic. Guardianship. They were planning to have me declared incompetent. In the house? Once we have guardianship, we sell it. Split the proceeds 3 ways. Dad moves into Sunset Manor. It's a decent place. He'll be looked after. Sunset Manor. I'd driven past it a dozen times. A long, low building painted an aggressive shade of yellow, with small windows and a parking lot that always looked half empty. The kind of place where people went to wait. I didn't move. Couldn't move. My own children, planning my future as though I were already gone. As though I were already just a problem to be managed, an asset to be liquidated. What about the properties in Kenora? Rebecca asked. You mentioned those last week. 4 rental units, all paid off. Mom was making about $6,000 a month from those alone. The money's been sitting in the trust account, accumulating. We're talking serious money, Becca. Enough to set up the kids' education funds, pay off our mortgage, maybe even buy that cabin on Lake of the Woods you've been eyeing. I'd spent 37 years teaching high school mathematics in Saskatoon. Margaret had taught elementary school in the same district. We'd lived modestly, saved carefully, taken 1 vacation a year, usually camping in Banff or driving to visit Margaret's sister in Nova Scotia. We'd helped both kids with university, given them each $20,000 for down payments on their first homes. I'd thought we'd done well. I'd thought we'd been partners. Your dad really didn't know? Rebecca sounded almost incredulous now. In all those years? Mom said he never asked questions about money. She handled all the bills, all the investments. He was happy just getting his paycheck deposited and having enough for his fishing trips. She said it was easier that way. Less complicated. 47 years of marriage, reduced to a convenient arrangement. I heard papers shuffling. This is the power of attorney document. Once we have guardianship, this gives us full control over any assets in his name. Not that there's much. His teacher's pension, the joint bank account. That's about it. And Claire's on board with all this? Claire's the one who suggested it. She's been managing the trust since Mom died. She doesn't want Dad anywhere near the money. Says he'll just give it away to some charity or blow it on something stupid. My daughter Claire, 41 years old, a corporate lawyer in Toronto. I'd been so proud when she graduated from Osgoode Hall. Watched her walk across that stage with tears in my eyes. Her mother had been beside me, squeezing my hand. When does Claire arrive? Rebecca asked. Friday. We'll sit down together. Go over the timeline. She's got the doctor appointments lined up. Dr. Patel at the memory clinic. Dr. Chen for a psychiatric evaluation. Both are sympathetic to family concerns. Sympathetic. I understood what that meant. They'd already been approached, already been told what to look for, what to diagnose. The fix was in. I still feel weird about this, Rebecca said. There was a hesitation in her voice that might have been conscience. He's your father. And I'm protecting him, Ethan replied, his tone defensive. He can't manage on his own. You've seen him. He left the car running in the garage for 3 hours last month. He could have died. This is about safety. I had left the car running. I'd gone inside to grab something and gotten distracted by a phone call from an old colleague. But 3 hours? That was an exaggeration. It couldn't have been more than 20 minutes. Besides, Ethan continued, it's not like we're stealing from him. This is Mom's money. She earned it. She chose not to tell him about it. That was her decision. We're just following through with what she wanted. What she wanted. I thought about the woman I'd shared a bed with for 47 years. The woman who'd held my hand when my father died. Who'd stayed up all night when Claire had pneumonia at age 6. Who'd danced with me at our 40th anniversary party, her head on my shoulder, while our grandchildren watched and laughed. Had she really wanted this? Had she really built this elaborate financial structure specifically to exclude me? Or had it started as something else? Something that grew over time into this fortress of secrecy. I heard Ethan stand up, chair legs scraping against the hardwood floor. We should go. I don't want Dad waking up and finding us here. He thinks I'm in Calgary until Wednesday. What if he already heard us? He sleeps like the dead, and even if he did, he probably won't remember in the morning. That's the whole point. Footsteps moving toward the back door. I stayed frozen on the stairs, barely breathing. The door opened, closed. I heard Ethan's truck start in the back alley, the sound fading as he pulled away. I stood there for a long time after they left. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 20. Time had that strange elastic quality it gets when shock sets in. Eventually, my legs started to ache, and I realized I needed to move. I went down to the study. The room looked exactly as I'd left it the night before, except now I saw it differently. The filing cabinets Margaret had always kept locked. The desk drawer she'd told me held nothing interesting, just old bills and receipts. The shelf where she kept what she called her school papers in banker's boxes, warning me they were too boring to bother with. I tried the filing cabinet. Locked. But I knew Margaret. She was organized to a fault. There would be a key somewhere logical. I checked the pencil holder on the desk. Nothing. The top drawer had paper clips, rubber bands, stamps. The second drawer had hanging files, all labeled in Margaret's precise handwriting. Utility bills, tax returns, insurance. The third drawer stuck slightly when I pulled it. I wiggled it, heard something rattle. I pulled harder. The drawer came free, and there, taped to the back panel, was a small key. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the filing cabinet. Inside were rows of hanging folders, each meticulously labeled. Thomas Holdings, Winnipeg Properties. Thomas Holdings, Thunder Bay Commercial. Thomas Holdings, Kenora Rentals. Thomas Holdings, Investment Accounts. I pulled the first folder, Property Deeds, 8 of them. Addresses I vaguely recognized from Margaret's occasional trips to Winnipeg, which she'd always described as visiting old teaching friends. Rental agreements, property management contracts, bank statements showing deposits ranging from $1,500 to $3,000 per month per property. The next folder held more of the same. A commercial building in Thunder Bay, leased to a dental practice. Monthly rent, $7,000. The lease had been in place for 12 years. I kept pulling folders. Investment statements from a brokerage firm I'd never heard of. An RRSP in Margaret's name with a balance that made my vision blur. Bonds, GICs. A dividend portfolio that had been generating income for decades. At the bottom of the drawer was a large manila envelope. I opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten on Margaret's stationery. The date at the top was from 3 years ago. My dearest Robert, it began. My name in her handwriting, that familiar slant to the letters. If you're reading this, it means you've found what I've spent 40 years building. I don't know if you'll understand why I kept this from you. I'm not sure I fully understand it myself anymore. I sank into her desk chair, the leather still holding the faint scent of her perfume. I kept reading. When we got married, you were so confident about money. You had a plan for everything. Save 10%. Invest conservatively. No unnecessary risks. And that was fine for you. It made you feel secure. But I grew up watching my mother struggle, after my father died, with nothing. Watching her work 3 jobs to keep us fed. I swore I would never be that vulnerable. I remembered her father's death. Margaret had been 17. Her mother, Helen, had indeed struggled. I'd met them both before Helen passed away. Had seen the small apartment, the careful way she counted out change for groceries. So I started small, the letter continued. A little rental property in Winnipeg, bought with money I'd saved from teaching summer school. Then another. You were always so focused on our joint savings, our retirement plan. You never noticed when I took on extra tutoring jobs, when I taught night classes. That money was mine, and I used it to build something separate. I felt something twist in my chest. Not quite betrayal, not quite anger. Something more complicated. It grew bigger than I ever imagined. Each property paid for the next. The income compounded. By the time we'd been married 20 years, I had more assets in my name than we had together. And by then, it felt too late to tell you. How could I explain decades of secrecy? How could I justify what you would see as deception? My eyes were burning now. I blinked hard, forcing myself to keep reading. I told myself I was protecting us. Protecting you. If anything ever happened to our joint accounts, if you made a bad investment decision, we'd still have this. But the truth is, Robert, I was protecting myself. From ever being like my mother. From ever having to depend entirely on someone else. Even someone I loved as much as I loved you. The words blurred on the page. I've left instructions with Claire. She knows about everything. The properties, the trust, all of it. I've asked her to make sure you're taken care of. That you have what you need. The house is in your name, free and clear. Your pension and mine together should give you a comfortable life. I've set aside money in the trust to cover any medical expenses. Long-term care if you need it. Claire will make sure you're never a burden to anyone. A burden. There was that word again. Different context. Same implication. I love you, Robert. I always have. I know this will hurt you if you ever find it. I hope you never do. I hope you just remember me as your wife, your partner. But if you're reading this, know that every decision I made, even the ones that might seem cruel or calculating now, came from a place of fear. Not fear of you, fear of being helpless. The letter was signed simply, Margaret. I sat with that letter in my hands for a long time. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. That pale gray that comes before dawn in a Saskatchewan winter. I thought about 47 years of marriage, the good parts, and there had been so many good parts. Margaret's laugh. The way she'd edit my lesson plans and always make them better. Sunday mornings reading the paper together. The trips we'd taken, the memories we'd made. But underneath all of that, this. A parallel life I'd never seen. Money I'd never known about. Properties purchased and managed while I thought we were building something together. I heard a sound from upstairs. My bedroom. For a confused moment, I thought it might be Margaret, still alive, still here. Then I remembered. I lived alone now. The sound came again. A phone. My cell phone, charging on my nightstand. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees protesting. By the time I reached it, the call had gone to voicemail. I picked up the phone, 3 missed calls, all from Claire, all within the last hour. It was just past 6 in the morning. The phone rang again, Claire's name on the screen. I answered. Dad? Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I'm here, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant. Dad, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come by this morning? It's important. Is it about your mother's properties? I asked. Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought the call might have dropped. Then, carefully, Dad, what are you talking about? The rental properties in Winnipeg, the commercial building in Thunder Bay, the Kenora units, Thomas Holdings. Should I continue? Another pause. How do you know about those? I found your mother's files. And I heard Ethan and Rebecca in my study at 3 in the morning, talking about having me declared incompetent so they can sell the house and split the money. Dad, I can explain. Can you? I kept my voice level. Can you explain why my own children have been planning to strip away my autonomy? To put me in a home like I'm already gone? It's not like that. We're trying to protect you. From what, Claire? From living? From making my own decisions? You're not well, Dad. We've all seen the signs. The forgetfulness. The confusion. Mom was so worried about you in her last months. She made me promise to look after you, to make sure you were safe. By taking away my freedom? By having me evaluated by doctors you've already primed to find me incompetent? Who told you that? Her voice had gone sharp. It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is it's true. Isn't it? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quiet. Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We love you. We want what's best for you. Then let me make my own choices, I said. I'm 73 years old. I taught mathematics for 37 years. I raised 2 children. I've paid taxes, voted in every election, maintained this house, managed my affairs. What exactly am I supposed to be incompetent at? You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. This is what Mom wanted. Your mother wanted me put in a home. She wanted me declared incapable. She said that to you explicitly? Another pause. She wanted you taken care of. That's not the same thing, Claire. Dad, just let me come over. We can talk about this properly. No, I said. Not until I've had time to think. Not until I've had time to process what I found. What you've all been planning. Dad. I ended the call. My hand was shaking. I sat down on the edge of my bed, looking at the room Margaret and I had shared. The dresser where she'd kept her jewelry. The closet that still held her clothes because I hadn't been able to bring myself to sort through them yet. The photo on the nightstand from our wedding day. Both of us so young, so certain of the future we were building together. Had any of it been real? Or had I been living in a carefully constructed illusion, seeing only what Margaret wanted me to see? My phone rang again. Ethan this time. Then again. Claire. Then a text from Ethan. Dad, please answer. We need to talk. I turned the phone off. I spent that morning going through every file in Margaret's cabinet. Every bank statement. Every property deed. Every investment account. By noon, I had a complete picture. My wife had been, by any reasonable measure, wealthy. Not billionaire wealthy, but comfortable enough that we could have retired years earlier, traveled more, worried less about every expense. The properties in Winnipeg had been purchased between 1985 and 2003. 8 residential rentals, all in decent neighborhoods, all well-maintained according to the property management reports. The commercial building in Thunder Bay had been acquired in 2006. The Kenora properties had come later, around 2010. All told, the real estate portfolio was worth approximately $3 million. The investment accounts added another $1.5 million. The trust held close to $5 million in total assets. $5 million that Margaret had accumulated while we were splitting the cost of groceries, while I was agonizing over whether we could afford to replace the furnace, or if we should patch it one more year. I found something else, too. A letter from Margaret to Claire, dated just 2 weeks before Margaret died. This one was typed, printed out, businesslike. Claire, I'm writing this while I still have the clarity to make my wishes known. Your father is a good man, but he's never been practical about money. He gives too easily, trusts too readily. If he knew about the trust, he'd probably give it all away to some charity or feel obligated to split it with cousins we haven't spoken to in decades. I thought about that. Was it true? I'd always been generous with donations, gave to the food bank every Christmas, sponsored a child in Uganda for 20 years through one of those programs. But give away millions? That seemed like a leap. The money is for you and Ethan, the letter continued. For your families. For the grandchildren's education. Robert will be fine with his pension and the house. He doesn't need more than that. He's never been motivated by money anyway. That much was true. I'd never particularly cared about accumulating wealth. I'd cared about having enough, about security, about not worrying. I've set up the trust so that you're the executor. You'll have full discretion over distributions. I recommend waiting at least a year after my death before telling Robert anything. Let him grieve. Let him settle into his new reality. Then, when the time is right, you can explain that there's a fund set aside for his care, if he needs it. He doesn't need to know the full extent. But they weren't planning to wait a year, were they? They were planning to have me declared incompetent within months. They were planning to sell my home, my last connection to Margaret, to the life we'd built. I put the letter down and stared out the window. It had started to snow, those small, determined flakes that mean business, the kind that would accumulate into something substantial by evening. I thought about my options. I could confront Claire and Ethan directly, tell them I knew everything. But then what? A family war? Accusations and counter-accusations? Lawyers? That seemed exhausting and painful and likely to end with everyone hurt. I could do nothing. Let them proceed with their plan. See if the doctors they'd lined up would actually declare me incompetent. But the thought of sitting through evaluations designed to prove I was failing, of being studied like a specimen, made my stomach turn. Or I could do something else entirely. I picked up my phone and turned it back on. Ignored the 17 missed calls and dozen text messages. Instead, I searched for lawyers specializing in estate law. Found one with good reviews, a practice in downtown Saskatoon. Called and, miraculously, they had a cancellation that afternoon. Could I come in at 2 o'clock? I could. Gregory Morrison had an office that smelled like old books and furniture polish. He was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with graying hair and the kind of steady manner that probably reassured anxious clients. I told him everything. Margaret's secret wealth, the letter, my children's plan for guardianship, the doctors they'd lined up. He listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Mr. Thornton, do you feel competent to manage your own affairs?" "Yes," I said. "I forget things sometimes. Everyone my age does. But I pay my bills. I manage my medications. I make my own meals. I drive without incident. I'm grieving my wife, but I'm not incapacitated. Have you been diagnosed with dementia? Alzheimer's? Any cognitive impairment? No. My doctor says I'm in good health for my age. Some arthritis. Blood pressure, slightly elevated but controlled with medication." "That's it. Then they'll have a difficult time getting guardianship," Morrison said. "It's not impossible, especially if they have cooperative doctors, but it's not easy either. A judge would need to be convinced that you're genuinely unable to care for yourself. But it could happen? It could. Especially if you have no one advocating for you. If it's your children's word against yours, and they paint a picture of decline, of dangerous incidents, of a man who's not thinking clearly." I understood. "So what do I do?" Morrison leaned forward. "First, we document your competence. I'll arrange for an independent cognitive assessment, not through doctors your children have contacted, but through a geriatric specialist with no stake in the outcome. We create a record that shows you're of sound mind." "Okay." "Second, we look at your assets. What's in your name? The house. It's fully paid off. My pension. A joint bank account with about $30,000 in it. Your wife's estate? How is that structured?" "There's a trust. Thomas Holdings. My daughter Claire is the executor. Everything is in there. Properties, investments, about $5 million total." Morrison's eyebrows rose slightly. "And you're not a beneficiary?" "I don't know. I haven't seen the trust documents. We need to see them. If you're her spouse, you may have rights, even if you're not explicitly named. Saskatchewan law provides spousal protections. She died 8 months ago. Wouldn't that deadline have passed? For some things, yes. But if you weren't properly notified of the trust's existence, if there was deliberate concealment, that changes the timeline. We may be able to challenge the structure." I thought about that. I don't know if I want to challenge it. The money was hers. She earned it. Morrison gave me a look that was both sympathetic and slightly exasperated. "Mr. Thornton, you were married for 47 years. In the eyes of the law, assets accumulated during a marriage are generally considered joint property, regardless of whose name is on the title. Your wife's income, your income, all of it contributed to the household. Her ability to purchase those properties was likely facilitated by your shared expenses being covered by your income." I hadn't thought of it that way. But he was right. My teacher's salary had paid for groceries, utilities, the mortgage when we'd still had one. That had freed up Margaret's income for investment. Even if you don't want the money, Morrison continued, you need to protect yourself from your children's actions. They're planning to take away your autonomy, sell your home, control your life. That's elder abuse, Mr. Thornton. Legal elder abuse, but abuse nonetheless. The words hit harder than I expected. Abuse. I thought about Ethan and Claire as children, teaching them to ride bikes, helping with homework, sitting through school plays and hockey games, all those ordinary moments of parenthood. Had I failed them somehow? Raised them to see me as nothing more than an obstacle to their inheritance? What would you recommend? I asked. Morrison tapped his pen against his pad. We need to move quickly. First, the cognitive assessment, to establish your competency. Second, we examine the trust documents and determine if you have any legal claim. Third, we make it clear to your children that you're aware of their plans and that you're taking steps to protect yourself. Sometimes just showing that you're not the confused, helpless person they think you are is enough to stop this kind of thing. And if it's not enough, then we get a restraining order preventing them from selling the house. We petition the court to appoint an independent guardian if they continue to pursue incompetency proceedings. We make it expensive and difficult for them. Eventually, they'll back off. That sounds like war, I said quietly. It is, Morrison agreed. It's a war you didn't start, and probably don't want. But sometimes the only way to maintain peace is to make the alternative too costly. I spent the rest of that week seeing doctors. Morrison arranged appointments with a geriatric specialist, a psychiatrist, and a neurologist. Each one put me through a battery of tests, memory games, puzzles, questions about current events, physical coordination tests. It was exhausting and, frankly, humiliating. But I understood why it was necessary. The results were unequivocal. Cognitively, I was within normal range for my age. No signs of dementia, no indication of impaired judgment. The psychiatrist noted that I showed some symptoms of depression and grief, which she said was entirely normal and expected given the recent loss of my wife. Your children are concerned about some incidents, the geriatric specialist, Dr. Patterson, said during our final meeting. The car left running. Missed appointments. Can you speak to that? The car was running for about 20 minutes, not 3 hours, I said. I went inside to grab something and got distracted by a phone call. It was careless, but not dangerous. As for missed appointments, I've missed 2 in the last year. Once because I wrote down the wrong date. Once because I had the time wrong. I'm not perfect, but I'm not incompetent. She nodded, making notes. And you're managing your household? Cooking? Cleaning? Medications? Yes. I've had to learn to cook more than I used to. Margaret did most of it. But I'm managing. The house is clean. I take my blood pressure medication every morning with breakfast. I pay my bills online. I do my own banking. Do you feel safe living alone? Yes. I have friends from the school where I taught. We meet for coffee twice a week. I have neighbors who check in. I'm not isolated. And your relationship with your children? I hesitated. Complicated at the moment, but I love them. I'm not angry, just disappointed. Dr. Patterson closed her folder. Mr. Thornton, in my professional opinion, you don't require a guardian or any form of conservatorship. You're a competent adult, managing your affairs appropriately. I'll provide a detailed report to your lawyer. I felt something unknot in my chest. Validation. Proof that I wasn't the confused, declining old man my children wanted me to be. Morrison called the next day. We got the reports. They're excellent. Now we need those trust documents. I've sent a formal request to your daughter as executor. She has 10 days to respond. What if she doesn't? Then we file a motion with the court. But she will. She's a lawyer. She knows the consequences of not complying. Claire responded in 7 days. The documents arrived by courier, a thick envelope containing the trust agreement, schedules of assets, and correspondence. Morrison and I went through them together. The trust was structured to benefit Claire and Ethan exclusively. I wasn't named as a beneficiary anywhere. There was a clause that allowed for distributions for my care and maintenance at the executor's discretion, but no guarantees, no minimums, no protections. This is concerning, Morrison said. Your wife essentially disinherited you. Everything goes to the children. Can she do that? We were married. Technically, yes. The properties were in her name alone, purchased with her separate income. The investments were hers. The The trust is discretionary. But, he paused, reading through a section carefully. There's an argument to be made that she had a fiduciary duty to you as her spouse. That hiding these assets for decades and then structuring the estate to exclude you entirely violates that duty. It's not an easy argument, but it's viable. What would that mean? If we challenged it, the court could order a redistribution. You could be entitled to a spousal share. In Saskatchewan, that might be anywhere from 30 to 50% of the marital estate, depending on how the judge views the contributions each of you made. We're talking about millions of dollars, I said. The number still didn't feel real. Yes, we're talking about your share of a fortune your wife built during your marriage. Money that, arguably, you helped her accumulate by supporting the household. I thought about that. About teaching for 37 years. About every dinner I'd made, every repair I'd done on the house, every expense I'd covered so Margaret could save and invest. Had I unknowingly funded my own exclusion? I need to think about this, I said. Of course. But Mr. Thornton, while you're thinking, your children are planning. I received a call from Claire's lawyer this morning. They're aware that you've had independent evaluations. They want to meet. What kind of meeting? A negotiation. They're willing to discuss alternatives to guardianship if you're willing to discuss your living arrangements. They still want me in a home. Probably. But now they know it will be harder to force. So they'll offer incentives. Money from the trust. Support services. They'll try to make it attractive. I don't want to leave my house, I said. Then don't. You have the reports proving your competence. You have legal standing to stay right where you are. The question is, what do you want beyond that? I didn't answer right away. What did I want? Justice? An apology? My children back, the way I thought they'd been? None of those seemed achievable. The meeting happened a week later in Morrison's office. Claire and Ethan came with their lawyer, a polished woman named Andrea Wells, who had the kind of confidence that probably cost $300 an hour. I sat on one side of the conference table. They sat on the other. Morrison beside me, Wells beside them. It was the first time I'd seen either of my children since the night I'd overheard their conversation. Claire looked tired. Ethan looked defensive. Neither of them would quite meet my eyes. Mr. Thornton, Wells began, my clients want to resolve this situation in a way that respects everyone's interests. They're concerned about your well-being and want to ensure you have the support you need. By having me declared incompetent? I asked. That was one option discussed, Wells said smoothly. But given the recent evaluations, it's clear that approach isn't necessary. However, their concerns about your living situation remain valid. I'm living in my own house, I said. The house my wife and I bought 45 years ago. I'm managing fine. My clients worry about your isolation, Wells continued. About the risk of falls, medical emergencies, confusion. They propose a compromise. You move to an assisted living facility, not a nursing home. A place with independent apartments, support services available but not mandatory. They'll cover all costs from the trust. You'll have your own space, but also safety and community. And my house, I asked, though I already knew the answer, would be sold. The proceeds would go into the trust to ensure there are sufficient funds for your long-term care. I looked at Claire and Ethan. Is that what you want? To uproot me? To take away the last place I have memories of your mother? Claire finally looked up. Dad, we're trying to help. The house is too big for you. It needs repairs. The neighborhood is changing. You'd be better off somewhere more manageable. Better off or more convenient for you? I asked. Ethan bristled. That's not fair. We've been worried sick about you. You're not yourself since Mom died. I'm exactly myself, I said. I'm grieving. That doesn't make me incapable. Morrison cleared his throat. My client is legally competent to make his own decisions about where he lives. If he wants to stay in his home, he has every right to do so. Your concerns, while possibly well-intentioned, don't override his autonomy. Wells frowned. We're trying to reach an agreement that avoids court proceedings. Surely that's in everyone's interest. It is, Morrison agreed, which is why my client has a counter-proposal. I discussed this with Morrison the night before. It had taken me hours to decide, but once I had, the clarity was surprising. I'll stay in my house, I said. I'll arrange for home support services, if that makes everyone more comfortable. A cleaning service twice a month. Meals on wheels, if I find cooking too burdensome. Regular check-ins from a nurse. I'll pay for it myself. Dad, you can't afford. Ethan started. I can, I interrupted, because I'm going to petition the court for my spousal share of your mother's estate. The room went silent. Claire's face had gone white. Ethan looked confused. Your spousal share? Wells asked carefully. Morrison slid a document across the table. Saskatchewan law provides for spousal property rights. Mr. Thornton was married to Margaret Thornton for 47 years. During that marriage, she accumulated substantial assets. Assets that Mr. Thornton arguably helped her acquire by supporting the household. We believe he's entitled to at least 40% of the estate. 40%? Claire's voice was sharp now. That's ridiculous. Mom earned that money herself. With her own labor, I agreed. But using infrastructure we built together. I paid the mortgage, I paid for groceries and utilities and cars and vacations. I covered our living expenses so she could invest her income. That's a contribution, Claire. A substantial one. You can't do this, Ethan said. You can't just take what Mom left us. I'm not taking anything, I said quietly. I'm claiming what's legally mine, what I earned over 47 years of marriage. If you'd approached this differently, if you'd been honest with me, if you'd treated me like a human being instead of an inconvenient problem, we wouldn't be here. But you lied to me. You planned to strip away my freedom. You treated your mother's death as a business opportunity. That's not fair, Claire said, but her voice had lost its edge. She sounded, suddenly, very young. Fair? I felt something rise in my chest. Not quite anger. Sadness, maybe. Disappointment. Your mother and I built a life together. We raised you, supported you through university, helped you buy homes. And when she died, instead of grieving with me, you started plotting how to take what was left. You think that's fair? Nobody answered. Morrison spoke into the silence. Here's what we're proposing. Mr. Thornton stays in his house. He arranges for appropriate support services. He receives 40% of the trust assets, which he'll manage himself or through an independent financial advisor. The remaining 60% is divided between Claire and Ethan as their mother intended. Everyone walks away with something. No court battle. No public airing of family grievances. And if we don't agree? Wells asked. Then we file our petition and let a judge decide, Morrison said. And I'll be honest with you, Miss Wells, I think we'll win. The facts strongly support Mr. Thornton's claim, his contribution to the marriage, the length of the marriage, the deliberate concealment of assets. A judge will not look kindly on what appears to be a systematic effort to disinherit a loyal spouse. Wells looked at Claire and Ethan. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Claire spoke. Can we have some time to discuss this? Of course, Morrison said. Take a week. But after that, we move forward one way or another. They left. I sat in Morrison's office, feeling hollowed out. 47 years of family reduced to contract negotiations. You did well, Morrison said. I feel terrible, I replied. That's because you're a decent person. But Mr. Thornton, you can't let their manipulation make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. They're my children, yes. And they're adults who made choices. Those choices have consequences. Claire called me 3 days later. Not through lawyers. My cell phone, early evening. I almost didn't answer. Dad? Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. Can we talk? Just you and me? All right, I said. I'm outside your house. Can I come in? I went to the door. Claire was standing on the porch, no coat despite the cold, her arms wrapped around herself. I let her in. We sat in the living room, the room where she'd played as a child, where she'd practiced piano, where we'd celebrated her law school acceptance with champagne. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry, Dad. I got it wrong. We got it wrong. I waited. Mom was worried about you at the end, Claire continued. She said you'd never been good with money, that you'd give it away or waste it. She made me promise to protect you, even from yourself. And I thought I was doing that. I thought keeping you away from the money, managing things for you, that was what she wanted, what you needed. I'm not incompetent, Claire. I know that now. But I convinced myself you were declining. Every forgotten appointment, every small mistake, I made it into evidence. I built this narrative in my head where you were slipping away, and we needed to intervene. And Ethan, he just followed my lead. He always has. You were planning to put me in a home. I thought it would be better for you, she said, but even she didn't sound convinced. Safer, less lonely. It's my home, Claire. The place your mother and I built together. You can't take that from me. I know. I'm not trying to anymore. She wiped at her eyes. I miss her so much. And I think I've been angry. Angry that she left. Angry that you're still here and she's not. That's horrible, isn't it? I felt something shift. Grief makes us horrible sometimes. I found a letter she wrote to me, Claire said. After she died. It was with her will. She told me to take care of you, to make sure you had everything you needed, but she also said not to let you know about the trust. She was so clear about that. Keep it separate. Don't tell him. And I've been following those instructions like they were sacred. Like if I did exactly what she said, somehow she wouldn't really be gone. Your mother kept secrets, I said. She built something beautiful and impressive, but she built it on secrets. And secrets poison things, Claire. They poisoned what we had. They're poisoning what you and I have now. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I'm just trying to understand. Your lawyer's proposal. The 40%. Is that really what you want? I thought about that. What I want is my children back. What I want is my wife back. What I want is to understand why she couldn't trust me with the truth. But I can't have any of those things. So yes, I'll take my share of what we built together, and I'll use it to live my life on my terms. Okay, Claire said quietly. I'll tell Ethan. We'll accept the terms. She stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. Dad? The money? The properties? All of it. I understand now. It was never about wealth. It was about control. Mom needed to feel like she controlled her own destiny. And I've been doing the same thing. Trying to control yours. Maybe we all need to learn to let go, I said. After she left, I sat in the living room for a long time. I thought about Margaret, about the life we'd shared and the life she'd hidden. I thought about trust and secrets, and the ways we protect ourselves from each other, even when we love each other. The settlement took 6 weeks to finalize. I received 40% of the trust assets, not the properties themselves, but equivalent cash value, about $2 million, deposited into a new account in my name alone. I hired a financial advisor, a woman named Susan Chow, who came highly recommended and who didn't patronize me or suggest I was too old to understand investment principles. We set up a conservative portfolio, enough income to live comfortably, with principal preserved for unexpected expenses or to leave to my grandchildren someday. I kept the house, hired a cleaning service and a handyman for major repairs, set up a meal delivery service for days when I didn't feel like cooking, got a medical alert system, mostly to reassure Claire and Ethan. My relationship with my children improved slowly. Ethan apologized eventually, though he never quite looked me in the eye when he did. We see each other now on holidays, birthdays. The grandchildren come over sometimes, and I teach them card games and how to identify birds at the feeder. With Claire, it's more complicated. We talk once a week on the phone. She's been in therapy, working through her grief and her control issues. She tells me things now about her marriage, which isn't as perfect as I thought, about her struggles with anxiety. We're building something new, something more honest than what we had before. I think about Margaret every day. I've stopped trying to reconcile the woman I knew with the woman who built that financial empire in secret. Maybe she was both. Maybe we all have multiple selves, parts we show and parts we hide. I found another letter she'd written, not in the files, but tucked into a book on her nightstand. Just a few lines, undated, maybe never meant to be found. Robert is the kindest man I've ever known. Sometimes I think he's too kind, too trusting. The world will hurt him when I'm gone. But maybe that's not such a bad way to live. Maybe kindness is its own kind of strength. I keep that letter in my wallet. Read it sometimes when I'm doubting myself or feeling lonely. It reminds me that she did love me, that whatever else was true, that part was real. It's been 18 months now since the night I heard my children planning my future without me. 18 months since I discovered my wife's secret life. I'm 74 years old. I still live in my house. I still go for walks in the morning, still have coffee with friends from the school, still volunteer at the library on Tuesday afternoons. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes too much energy, and I've learned to be selective about where I spend mine. I'm not even particularly sad, though I miss Margaret in ways that still surprise me. The way she hummed while doing dishes, the way she'd fall asleep reading in bed, book open on her chest. What I am is grateful. Grateful that I discovered the truth. Grateful that I fought for my autonomy. Grateful that my children and I found a way forward, even if it's not the relationship I once thought we had. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not knowing about the money sooner, if I wish Margaret had told me. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe knowing would have changed things between us. Maybe it would have infected our partnership with suspicion or resentment, or maybe we could have celebrated it together, used it to build an even better life. But that's not what happened. What happened is I lived 73 years mostly content, mostly honest, mostly kind. And when I discovered that the ground I'd been standing on wasn't quite what I thought, I found my footing anyway. That's the story I tell myself now. That's the story I'll keep telling until it becomes true enough to live with. I'm sitting on my porch as I finish writing this, looking out at the street where my children learned to ride bikes. It's early spring, that tentative time when you can smell change in the air, but winter hasn't quite let go. The snow is melting. Crocuses are pushing up through the soil. Everything beginning again. My phone buzzes. A text from Claire. Coming over Sunday with the kids. Can we make pancakes? Of course, I text back. I'll have the griddle ready. And I will. Because that's what you do. You keep going. You keep choosing kindness even when it's not returned. You keep building, even on uncertain ground. That's what I learned from all of this. Not that people are trustworthy, or that family is forever, or that love conquers all, but that you can survive betrayal, that you can rebuild, that it's never too late to insist on your own dignity, your own choices, your own life. I'm 74 years old. I thought my story was mostly written, but it turns out I have chapters left, and this time, I'm the one holding the pen.